When it comes to creating black and white art, many beginners are confused about which pencils to buy. These two types of pencils are the only one I'm using when I want to draw something in black and white. They work wonderfully together, but now I'm going to analyze them separately to see what makes them so good. They are from the same company, but although they may look similar, they are total opposites with a totally different outcome. With all that being said, let's put these bad boys to work. As already mentioned, these pencils are totally different. One pencil's lid is made out of carbon and the other one of graphite. But what does this mean? Mars Lumograph Black, due to the high carbon composition, will give you a matte result with a very dark black. Mars Lumograph Pure Graphite is made out of 100% graphite, not having any wood in the composition like the other, so its lid is very thick and encompassing the whole pencil. As we all know, graphite reflects a lot of light, so this is a major difference between these two types of pencils. Now let's look at each one individually, starting with the graphite pencil. Since these are made entirely of graphite, they are very heavy when held in hand. The interior of this pencil is coated with a very thin layer of varnish to avoid getting your hands dirty when drawing. The end of the pencil is also coated for the same reasons as the rest of the pencil, plus to protect the lid. On the pencil packaging you can find all the necessary information, like the brand, the name and the degree of hardness number. The Mars Lumograph Black, unlike the other one, has a lid that has a wooden protection around it and is also very light when held in hand. The lid is very matte and hard, with a very intense black. The end of the pencil is also covered, which protects the lid very much in case it's dropped. Also, in the case of these pencils, all the information can be found on the packaging, the name of the company, the type of the pencil and the hardness. The price doesn't differ too much, but it depends on the place they are sold. I found pretty much everywhere the same difference in price. They both cost about $11 per set, so somewhere around $1.60 per pencil, with a few cents difference between them. What is a graphite grading scale? Graphite pencils are classified as either soft black, B, hard, H, hard black, HB, and firm, F. The degree of soft black, hard black, and firm are then further classified by numbers. The higher the number, the higher the intensity. This information can be found as well on the backs of both pencils they come in. To make our job easier, Staedtler have also added a small swatch on the packaging as an example of how intense each pencil looks when used on paper. Mars Lumograph Black has the most intense pencil, numbered by 8B, while the graphite ones have it numbered as 10B. Both contain an HB, 2B, 4B and 6B. The only difference is that the black ones continue counting up to 8B, while the graphite ones are skipping 2 numbers. All these numbers may seem confusing if you are a beginner, but it's very simple. The higher the number, the more intense the result will be. For a better overview, I made swatches of each pencil side by side. From the first moment this touched the paper, one major difference I noticed is how soft the graphite ones are and how hard the carbon ones are. The graphite ones have a bit of a buttery effect, they glide very easy across the paper and feel the texture of the paper very quickly. The carbon ones have a totally different feel. When I applied them to the paper, I felt like they were scratching the paper a bit due to the fact that their lid is very hard and gives it a sort of chalky effect. More pressure was needed to cover as much of the texture of the paper as possible, but a good thing is that it leaves less residue behind than the other one. A second significant difference is the reaction in contact with light. Although I used both pencils with the light positioned in the same place, the graphite ones showed a very high gloss compared to the carbon ones, which kept their matte effect throughout, which is a very big plus. While we're on the subject of reaction to light, I took the swatch of the most intense pencils in the sets and brought them even closer to the light source. Without a doubt, the one made with graphite almost blinded me with its brightness, while the one with carbon reflected just a little bit of light. What I found bizarre about the Mars Lumograph Black is that if I drew the swatch only in one direction, it remained completely matte, whereas if I added some movement in the opposite direction, this matte effect disappeared a bit, the marks in the opposite direction becoming shiny. The fact that graphite shines a lot and it's hard to find a good angle to photograph the finished artwork made me avoid these pencils for a while, but then I discovered the ones with carbon in them, which work perfectly with the other ones. I recommend using Mars Lumograph Graphite as a base coat, then Mars Lumograph Black for very dark areas and details. Since sharpening is also an important part of using a pencil, I put them to the test with my electric sharpener. They both came out with a very sharp tip. Like me, we've all had experiences with very cheap pencils that kept breaking when sharpening until we realized afterwards that half of the pencil was gone. When it comes to details, I prefer a pencil with a very steady and sharp lid. The graphite ones having a very soft lid, I have created some very intense lines without much pressure, but the consequence of this is that the tip wears off very quickly, making thicker and thicker lines, which is not what we want when drawing fine details, it needing a continuous sharpening. Applying the same pressure to the other pencil, you can see how the lines don't have a very strong appearance, but by pressing harder, I could reach the intensity of the other pencils. Due to the carbon in the lid, the tip stays sharp for a longer time. A big advantage of soft pencils is the speed with which a layer can be created. Mars Lumograph Pure Graphite are ideal for base layers and covering a wider area of the drawing in a very short time, especially when working on a drawing of a large scale. However, it should be kept in mind that its creamy texture also has a disadvantage. As the paper can hold only a limited amount of layers, overdriving with the pressure on the pencil can very quickly lead to the entire texture of the paper being covered. Layering with Mars Lumograph Black took a little longer and I had to apply more pressure. As I mentioned before, its lid has a very chalky effect, giving a scratchy feel to the paper that is much more prominent in this case of creating a layer. A plus is that you can control the amount of pigment applied to the paper, avoiding overloading its texture. To test how good can they blend, I will use an earbud, a brush and a blending stump. All three are great for a smooth result. In the case of all of these three tools, I got a smooth result very quickly due, again, to the creamy texture. It was very satisfying to see how easily all those pencil marks turn into a very smooth layer. All three utensils had the same result, proving that no matter which one you use when blending, they will all achieve the same goal. A smooth blending is essential when drawing people or other fine objects, this making this kind of pencil ideal for smooth base layers. On the other hand, I don't have such good news about the carbon pencils. The end result was not so smooth, leaving behind some marks that give a very messy look to the blending, predominantly when I used the earbuds and the blending stump. The brush gave me the desired result, which is due to the fact that the bristles are very soft and in a very large number. What I think was the cause in the case of the other tools is the fact that they both have a harder and narrower surface. Of course, they all achieved their purpose in the end, and with a bit of persistence, you can definitely achieve a smooth effect. For shading, I started out with Mars Lumograph Black. I created an even layer over the entire surface of the sphere, then got rid of the texture with a blending stump. Although the blending stump left a lot of marks behind, I didn't worry too much about it, knowing that more layers will come and cover most of them. I loved the intensity of the black achieved from the first coat, intensifying after each application. To achieve the smoothest effect, I only used circular movements. This tip also applies when using the stump. This helps to spread the pigment evenly over the entire surface of the paper. What I like about these pencils is that being very hard, you have to press harder to increase the density of the shading, therefore having a lot of control over each layer. I've driven you crazy with the creamy texture of this pencil, but I can't help myself. For me, this is what I look the most in a pencil for creating base layers in my drawings. The minimal effort put into blending them and the large coverage makes shading much faster and with an end result without any trace of pencil marks. The end result of the sphere is so smooth that it can easily be used as a study to create a dark skin. Because we all know how important the highlights are to create a realistic drawing, I used a putty eraser and a pen eraser for both types of pencils. The putty eraser lifted the pigment of both pencils very well. I was able to create a shiny effect very quickly, with neither of them resisting or creating any smudges. The more I applied the kneadable eraser, the more pigment was lifted, so you can achieve some very strong highlights with this tool on both sides. For finer and stronger highlights, I used a pen eraser. Everything worked like a charm here too. In just one application, I created some very strong details with this type of eraser. This can be used to create textures in clothes, highlights in parts of the face like eyes and nose, or hair. I can say that Mars Lumograph Pure Graphite as well as Mars Lumograph Black reacted identically to this test. Now we came to an end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it and you've learned a lot from it. I am posting one time a week and normally graphite, color pencil or pastel related videos. So if you don't want to miss any of those, please hit that subscribe button and the bell button as well to be notified every time a video goes live, and I really hope I'm going to see you in the next one as well. Have a nice day. Bye guys!